Welcome to Life by Design, episode 374. Welcome to Life by Design. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards, and I'm joined today with my good friend and pal, Dr. Crayshow Judd.
Happy Love Day.
Happy Love Day. We are creators of Life by Design with many locations worldwide. Each week on the show, we discuss the principles and the practice of Life by Design. Today, we're talking about one of the most well-known emotions known to humankind, and that's love. And today's Love Day. Today's actually Scotty's birthday.
Yeah, Scotty, on Love Day. That's awesome. Happy birthday, Scotty.
Yes, big shout out to my daughter, Scotty. She's 3 today. And today is her birthday, and happy birthday to Dana as well, because obviously without her, this wouldn't happen either. So seeing today's Valentine's Day, and as our kids say it, Valentime's Day. I had this conversation with Andy this morning at breakfast. She's like, it's Valentine's Day. I'm like, it's Valentine's Day. Which Times Day, Valentine's Day. So, obviously it's a core concept to all of our lives, and love is maybe you can comment here, but I would say love is probably the most, not just well-known, but pervasive, thought about, central component to the vast majority of people's lives.
Yeah, because it feels so good. It's definitely a driver,
For sure. And the concept today they were talking about, if you go back and look at Think by Design, and I'll actually put the ebook in the show notes so you can grab that for free, as well as the 30-day Think by Design challenge. And this often brings up a level of, I think uncomfortableness for people. The concept definitely sets people back. It can even spark some emotions of anger and total disagreement here when we talk about love being maybe the most selfish of all the emotions, and why unconditional love is essentially impossible. So that's a big mouthful. That's a big topic to discuss. So why don't we talk with some of the basics, Crayshow, and lead us into it?
Yeah. So, love it's important that we're clear on what we're talking about here, right? So there's this aspect that we're all kind of bred or led to believe, that love is like, non-understandable, mystical, something outside of the realm of the mind, something beyond. There's all these mystical things that we're taught about it. And it's really simple. It's an emotional response to the things that you value, right? So when you love somebody, or when you have admiration for somebody, or it doesn't always need to be love in the sense of, you and your wife or you and your partner. There's other types of love, right? Like there's parts of you that I admire tremendously, right? That I'm always looking, so that's what it means. It's your emotional, it's that emotional feeling you get when you see things that you value in other people or other things even. Right. Yep. That's all that it is. It's your emotional response. Right.
And that's why you feel a very similar emotion in multiple different areas of your life. So, let's say you see your partner doing something, acting in a way that really aligns with your values. You'll notice that brings up an emotion in you that maybe you didn't have that emotion, the moment before. And it's not that you didn't love that person or care deeply about that person, but when you really see those values of yours being expressed, that's what you feel. And, there's all these physiological effects, I think, that tie in the heart, and, the heart being a big part of love. And people say, oh, it's in my heart. And from a physiology standpoint, and yes, there's a whole series of chemical reactions, and part of what you feel, makes you think that it's coming from your heart. But again, these emotions are, the product of what's happening in your mind. And I think back to a lot of the things we talk about here at Life by Design, recognizing that emotions are effects, and that our mind is really the central driver for our life. So this is why our value system is so important when we go back to identifying values. If you don't know what your values are, then it's going to be very difficult for you to seek out experiences and people who have those values. And when you are able to do that because you know and understand your values, then you're going to be in a state where you're feeling love more often because you're around people, like when we're around you guys or around our other good friends or family or with our children, you're feeling love. And then there's those times in your life where you can't understand, why you're not feeling as much love. And if you look around, it may be because you've made some choices where you're surrounding yourself with people, places, or things that don't match your values.
Well, you've answered the question of why is love selfish, right? So we've defined what it is. And now it gets down to, in order for you to have these responses, this emotional feeling of I'm in love, or I feel strongly, a strong positive towards this person or towards this group or towards this thing, what that means is that it has to be a representation of your values. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what your values are, or if you have terrible values, or if you have no values at all, right? Because this is hard to believe, but there are people, they're called nihilists, who's, they don't have any values.
Right.
So you have to be clear on those things for you to actually appreciate and to understand what this feeling of love is. And then when you hear these concepts that love is unconditional, that would mean that I would have to love a murderous drug dealer as much as I would have to love my child or my wife, which is an impossibility. Right. And when I say it like that, people are like, no, that's not exactly what it means. But that's exactly what it means. That's why this practice of I'm going to love everything equally because I have to is an impossibility. It goes against your nature as a human being.
Right. It doesn't feel right. And if you wonder why it doesn't feel right, it's because it's not right in that sense. It's, as you said, I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. It's impossible. And when people feel the duty to have to love everybody and everything unconditionally, I think that creates a massive amount of distress for people, because imagine if you felt like that was what was required of you, that it was your duty to love everybody and everything unconditionally. Now, to get to the flip side of this, because where people go with that is, oh, so that means you hate everybody, right? You hate everybody else. You hate everything else. And it's not one or the other. It's neutral.
You can feel indifferent.
Right. That's my point. Right? I don't think people recognize that indifference is a choice.
You can still be benevolent. You can still be benevolent, right? You don't have to be, it's kind of what sneaks its way into this is this idea that humans are nasty or evil by default, which is incorrect, right? Humans are benevolent creatures. We don't wish other people harm. Like I can still have a goodwill towards human beings attitude and not love everybody equally.
Right. Yes, I think that's the important concept here is, you go back and you use actual examples. And this is where having values is so important. I mean, I would say looking back, I don't know that there's anything more important for my life over the last 15 or 20 years as to understanding this concept and really spending time understanding values. And I look back and I apply this lens to my life, pre 20 years ago. And a lot of things make sense in terms of, why I felt certain ways, why I felt stress or sadness or unhappiness at certain points in my life. It all becomes very clear when you understand this idea. And knowing my values allows me to create hierarchies in my life. And for some people, again, you look at that and you're told that that's not right, or, everybody needs to be treated the same. And it's crazy to think that, I'm going to be giving up something, time with my child, an experience with my child to go and do something for, say, somebody who I don't even know. And that's not to mean I wish bad on that person I don't know, or I don't hope that something good happens for them. Just means it doesn't have to be me. And by saying that, people are like, oh man, you're so selfish. Yes, I am selfish. And that means I'm going to apply my energy and my attention to the things that I care about the most, like my wife and my children and my family and my business and my friends and the things that I care about. And as you said, there's nothing more conditional than love.
Yeah. Yes. I totally agree. The conditions, it's the other thing that always happens. Well, you make this sound like this is a cold, hard business deal.
Yes, correct.
Right. But number one, business deals are not cold and hard. It's a trade. You exchange value for value, which is exactly what love is, right? But you get to set what the relationship looks like and what the details are based on your values and what's important to you, right?
Well, go ahead. I was going to say, just use as an example. Let's say you're in a relationship and, one of the trades that you have set up, either consciously or unconsciously, that, we're going to trust each other, or we're going to be faithful to each other, or we're going to, however we've decided to live our life in this relationship. If one or the other or both supersede that, then you may not feel that same emotion towards them anymore. And if you're trying to understand why, it's because, that deal has been broken in that sense. And it doesn't mean that, you don't have feelings of caring for that person, or, hopeful that things can get better. But at the same time, there's a series of agreements that are made in relationships. And when those agreements are held up, these conditions, if you will, you can't deny that your feelings of love are stronger. And so that alone is a good argument to highlight that love is conditional in that sense.
Of course, but it always is. It's and I see people struggle with this, right? Like it's
Right.
almost perceived as a negative that, oh, people are loving me for certain things. Well,
Right.
yeah, of course they are. What else is there? They're going to love you for nothing,
right? Well, and I think that's people, we get this sense that in a great relationship, we're loved unconditionally. And I think there's a real big downside to having that belief system, Cratio, is that you're not giving yourself credit, right? You're not giving yourself a pat on the back to say, look, this is amazing. I have somebody who loves me very much, and they love me dearly, and they treat me with great respect, and there's emotions of loving. It's wonderful, but that's in response to who I am as a human being and what I'm doing and the choices I'm making. So I should continue to make more of those, or to better myself, to continue to build that, versus, well, they love me unconditionally, so no matter what I do, I can do, whatever I want. I can treat them however I want. I can do things that, are completely immoral, and this person's going to love me anyway.
Right. I love you. Well, why do you love me? No reason.
Exactly. No reason at all. So let me bring up this. Here's a conversation.
But how would that make you feel? Right.
Imagine. Yeah, exactly. It would make me feel better.
Imagine that conversation with your wife. Jamie, I love you for no reason at all.
Right. Yeah, instead of saying I love you unconditionally, which makes people feel great, they're like, look, happy Valentine's. I love you. And there's not a single reason why.
Right.
So,
versus I love you for the person you are working to become.
Right. For sure. And the parts of you that I already, value.
Yeah, but that's why they value you, because you're that person, right? You're hardworking, right? And you have courage, and you're a good father. Like those traits, but those are earned. Those don't fall out of the sky.
Right. So let me continue down this path and ask a more difficult question that some of our listeners might be kind of starting to wrap their head around. So now you get into children, because I think you can see it in relationships with two adults where there's no blood relationship. You've met this person, you see these values, you start feeling love. Great. Talk about, children, because I think, a child is born, obviously, based on this is what value are they expressing at, in an infant stage? And I know you have some answers for this. And then as they get older, would you say that, let's say a child, I mean, that was a tough question and probably a bit of a lifeboat question, but let's say your child goes and does a lot of things that are in opposition to the values that, would make you feel more love for them. They kill somebody, they, become a certain type of person. How do you explain that and the feelings that would go along with that? And somebody would say, well, I would still love my child, in that, did Ted Bundy's mother still love him? I guess, you know what I'm getting at.
And it's a great question. So let's understand the context of the relationship here. I get to choose or not choose which partners I get in life, right? Mm-hmm. Like I can select everybody. I have already, but children, the supposition here is that I've already chosen to have children, right? Children, okay. Right? I've made the choice to have children, which automatically changes the nature of the relationship. Gotcha. So now, like we're all for freedom and stuff like that. But when you make a choice, you're responsible for those choices. So I am responsible for my children. Right. Okay, and hopefully the reason I have chosen to have children is because I want to have them. They are right. going to make me happy. And I'm with somebody who I want to express that in creating other human beings. So we have to keep that in context all the time, right? When you're looking at the relationship with children. So the value to having somebody like an infant or somebody would be, they just make you happy. Like, you've made this, you've wanted this, right? And now it's like a painting, right? Like that type of sense. It doesn't have to do anything. The fact that you have it, you love it, and it makes you happy.
Gotcha.
But now later on in life, I don't know. It probably gets more challenging and more confusing. I think there's always an element, because you chose to bring this person into the world. There will always be a segment of you that will be responsible, to help to the best of your ability.
Right.
And it's a tough conversation, right? Like, this is where things get really complicated. Are you doing the best when you're, aiding somebody who's 30 years old still, who hasn't learned how to become an adult? Is that really the best for that person? I don't know the answer to that question, but that's something that you have to keep in mind. But I don't know, man. Like, it's tough to answer. There's going to be aspects probably of everybody's personality that you don't love. Including the person who you love the most, who should be, your spouse and your partner. Right. So, I mean, that part I don't think is going to change. So I'm sure Ted Bundy's, if I had to answer, I'm sure Ted Bundy's mom loved some aspect of Ted Bundy. I'm sure she was horrified by some of the other actions. But remember, the context of the relationship is different when it comes to children versus another adult that you're choosing to enter into a partnership with.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. Thank you for answering that question. I think that probably helps some of the listeners. And the real take home here, guys, if you're listening, you made it this far, is that love is that love is the emotional reward for seeing your values in another person.
Can we just talk about why this is important and why people we probably should have talked about this at the very beginning. This is important because if you're not clear on this, right, this is like the way that your mind works and the way that your psychology works. Love is an expression for everybody. Anyone that experiences love, when you say, I love this song, I love this painting, I love this movie, what you're saying is there's certain aspect of you and what you value in this either work of art or in this human being. This is an inescapable primary as a human being. You will experience this because you're rational and you have a brain and you can think. If it's confusing and you don't really understand what's going on and you swallow these bromides of love is a duty, love is blind, it's this mystical thing I can't understand, it's greater than my reason, it's greater than my logic, it can lead you to make some really poor decisions, and it can lead you to places in your life where you're unhappy. We haven't covered this aspect of our lives on the show, but we both know what that feels like because we were both there for a long time until we started to clarify and understand what this actually was.
Right. No, totally agree. And it's, something that's going to be affecting you in some way, shape, or form all the way throughout your life. So the more you can understand that you have something to do with it, that how you develop yourself, how you understand your values and strive to pursue those values in your life, the more, you're probably going to experience a lot of great emotions. And there's a ton of joy that comes along with feeling this way. And I think for me, that's the fun part is I look back 15, 20 years ago compared to today and just understanding this and understanding how to best really take advantage of this and experience more of my life in a loving state compared to, where I was before and understanding why I didn't feel that way as much as I wanted to. It's really had a profound impact on my life and my enjoyment in life. And I just want that for everybody else as well.
It also helps on the opposite side when you don't feel love that you're, quote, supposed to feel for people who have the opposite values of you. It's helpful. I've felt a greater sense of peace towards those people. There used to be like this resentment. I'm supposed to have this to be a good person, but I don't have it, so I'm a bad person. There was that type of thing. Versus now it's more, you just have different values than me, so we don't have to be friends, and that's okay. Right.
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point there. Is a lot of people spend a lot of time in their life, too much time. And you can see it, especially in social media, where there's these battles back and forth. And I'm all for a good debate. But, how much time are you spending, really disliking other people who have different values from you simply because, they have these different values and then feeling bad about the fact that you don't like this person when really it's fine to be indifferent. Right. And I've had this, I'll finish on this. And if you have anything to add, but, I did have and have had lots of people and people in my life, relationships say, why are you so cold? You're just like, you have no emotions. And it's the opposite. My emotions and my warmth is extremely strong for the things and people that I care about most. And so, that's where, spending my time and love and joy on those things is, makes me feel amazing. But I don't spend time and energy and emotions on things that I don't care about. And again, it's not that I dislike them, it's that I'm indifferent. And so it's not that I'm cold, it's just that there's things that I'm indifferent to, and then there's things that I'm extremely emotional about.
Yep. Makes sense to me.
Awesome. Well, Kreisho, have a great day. Everybody, thanks for listening in and joining the drive to 1 million families worldwide living life by design.